Hello, my name is Santiago García-Castañón. I am originally from Spain. I have been living in the US for about 32 years, and I am a professor of Spanish at Western Carolina University here in beautiful Callaway, North Carolina. This is an interesting question. It's something that is pretty much embedded in a native speaker's brain to decide when he or she needs to use one register or another. It's something that is done for the most part unconsciously, so you don't really think of it, but each speaker uses a different register when they talk to different constituencies. I have found myself talking in a much more casual way, even using regional dialect when I'm talking to my friends back home in my hometown in Avilés, Asturias. And when I talk in my classes, I usually speak in a much more regional neutral accent. And of course, much more formal when you talk to somebody in a professional environment than when you talk to your friends or your colleagues or co-workers, etc. I will try to explain it briefly. This is a very complex issue. As everybody knows, we use two forms of address for the second person singular, tú and usted. And everyone knows that, all our students know that tú is used in a casual environment and usted in a more formal situation. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. There is also the generational component. Younger people tend to avoid using usted, while older people use usted much more often. At my time as a college student back in Spain, I would never ever address one of my college professors as tú, and this is pretty much standard today. So was it more formal back then when I was in college than it is today? I think it's like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Same thing for this. It's just sometimes a personal preference. Some people are more formal in their approach to language in general, and they would use usted. Certainly when you are a little older, people tend to address you as usted. When you are younger, tú is pretty much the preferred form.
Guten Tag. My name is Will Lehman. I'm a professor of German here at Western Carolina University. The question of formality in German is very fascinating. Of course, most people know that there are two forms of saying you. There's Sie, like sprechen Sie Deutsch, everybody knows that line, and there's du, which is the informal way of talking to friends and family members. The interesting part about it is that the rules that are given to you in any beginning German textbook are very simplified. And the real situation in the world is that there are a lot of times when people just aren't sure which way to address another person, another adult. For example, the book says, and most beginning language textbooks say the same thing, use informal when you're talking to friends and family, and formal when you're talking to any other adult. But in German, for example, if you belong, say, to a rowing club, when you join that rowing club, you are immediately allowed to say du to everybody in that group, even though you don't know them. So that is a violation of the rules that are given in the book. And this is actually a very important question in Germany, because in Germany it's illegal to insult people. And to call somebody du when they want to be called Sie counts as an insult. And you can actually get a fine for calling somebody du stubbornly, meaning after they've already told you, I don't want to be called that. So it is actually not just a social issue in Germany, but it's a legal issue. For example, if you say du to a policeman, you can get a ticket right there on the spot. So it's something that you have to really pay attention to when you're talking to people. And so there are situations where you're not sure whether you're really part of a club and whether that allows you to use the du form. So, for example, a young adult walks into music store, and there's other young adults working in there, and they all feel like they're part of a social group because they listen to alternative music, and very often the clerk will address the other adults in the room with du, even though she doesn't know them. So this is something that violates every rule that we ever learn in the book about when can you say du and when you can say sie. And sometimes the boss at your work will say, usually over a beer, he'll say, let's call each other du from now on. And it's his job, really, to be the one who offers the du to the other person. So you agree to it. The next day you show up at work, you're not even sure whether you're still allowed to use the du form with the boss because maybe he was under the influence when he said that. And so German actually has words to describe situations where somebody offered you the du while they were drunk, and now you're not sure whether you're still allowed to say it. Another thing is, if you quit the rowing club and you run into one of the members on the street, are you still allowed to use the du form? And people really aren't sure whether it's okay or it's not okay to do this. So the rules are given to you in the book, but they're not hard and fixed, and there's a lot of times when Germans will tell you, I'm just not sure which one to use. So my response is to avoid saying the word you or your at all, and wait for the other person to give some clue as to what form I'm expected to use.